For 12 years, I was called a man of God, a leader, a pastor, but behind closed doors, I was a slave, a prisoner of desires I couldn't kill. And today, I'm ready to confess it all. If you've ever felt like your personal struggles could destroy everything you've built, stay until the end. And before we begin, comment where you're watching from and subscribe, because this may be the most painful truth I've ever told people. My name is Matthew. I'm 39 years old. For more than a decade, I was the lead pastor of a thriving church. Every Sunday, I preached about holiness, purity, righteousness. I stood on the stage with a Bible in my hands, telling others how to kill sin, how to walk in the light. But when the lights went off, when the church was empty, I wasn't that man anymore. I was the preacher everyone admired, the counselor everyone trusted, the spiritual father to dozens. But behind the scenes, I was addicted, not to alcohol, not to drugs, but to lust, to fantasies, to images, to secret habits that started way before I ever held a microphone. Before I was a pastor, before I was a leader, I was already broken. It started when I was 13. A magazine one found hidden in my cousin's room. One single image flipped a switch in me that I never figured out how to turn off. As I grew, I learned how to hide it. I became the master of appearing holy while feeding a monster no one else could see. Even when I went to seminary, even when I said yes to the call of ministry, it didn't go away. It just went underground. I thought marriage would fix it. I thought leading people, preaching, fasting, praying, I thought those things would be enough to finally set me free. But the truth? The more people looked up to me, the heavier the mask became. At church, I was Pastor Matthew. But late at night, when my wife was asleep, when the kids were safe in their rooms, I was someone else, someone I hated. I would stand before hundreds talking about purity, then rush home and fall back into the same cycle, close the door, open my laptop, clear the history, pray, cry, beg God for mercy, promise it was the last time, until the next time, and it always came. I wanted to stop. I swear to you, I wanted to stop. But at some point, I started believing that maybe this was just who I was. A fraud, a hypocrite, a man with two lives, one in public and one in the shadows. It started small. It always does. During the first years of ministry, it was manageable, or at least that's what I told myself. A quick look, a 5-minute scroll, delete, repent, move on. I convinced myself it was under control, that I wasn't like those men who fell publicly. I told myself I could handle it because I was still leading people to Jesus, still preaching powerful sermons, still counseling marriages, baptizing new believers. But deep down, I knew something was cracking. Every time I opened the Bible to prepare a sermon on holiness, something in me felt sick. How could I tell others to crucify their flesh when I was secretly feeding mine? But the pull, the temptation, it felt stronger than my own prayers. The longer I stayed in leadership, the lonelier I felt. Ministry became performance. I was everyone's pastor, but no one's friend. I couldn't talk about it. How could I? Who does the pastor confess to when he's the one everyone runs to for help? So I kept it buried. But buried things grow. It moved from occasional slips to a routine, from once a month to every week, then almost every day. I started avoiding accountability, ignoring my wife's questions, skipping men's meetings. I would stare at myself in the mirror after a service where people were weeping in the altar call and ask, "Who even are you?" My eyes were tired. My soul felt heavy. I hated the man I was becoming, but I didn't know how to stop. I started justifying it. At least I'm not cheating physically. At least I'm not hurting anyone. But I was wrong. I was hurting everyone, starting with myself. I was hurting my wife, hurting my kids, hurting my church. And the scariest part, I got so good at hiding it that even I started believing the lie that I was okay. Until the cracks became fractures. Until the fractures became collapse. I knew it was just a matter of time. It became more than just a secret habit. It became my shadow. Every sermon I preached, every altar call I made, every marriage I counseled, it was standing right behind me, breathing down my neck. I would stand on stage, holding a microphone, leading people in declarations of freedom, while knowing I was the most bound man in the room. My prayer life became mechanical. My intimacy with God turned into a checklist. I prayed ... but never long enough to deal with what was truly inside. I fasted, but more to check a box than to seek deliverance. I started compartmentalizing everything. I was a man of God on Sunday mornings ... and a slave to lust on Monday nights. I remember moments when I would lead a powerful worship set, people falling to their knees, crying out to God, and I would walk off stage straight to the church bathroom, lock the door, pull out my phone, and feed the very demon that was destroying me. There were nights when my wife was asleep next to me, and I would sneak into the living room, headphones in, pretending to pray ... but feeding the addiction instead. It wasn't just videos anymore. It became chats, anonymous conversations, fantasies that escalated beyond anything I thought I was capable of. And the scariest part, it felt normal, like brushing my teeth, like checking emails. I started telling myself, this is just my thorn in the flesh. God understands, but God doesn't make peace with what is killing you. I was losing pieces of myself slowly, quietly. My sermons became hollow. My joy faded. I no longer felt the presence of God when I prayed. I felt ... empty. I avoided intimacy with my wife, making excuses about stress, about ministry. But the truth was, my soul was already cheating on her every night. I became more irritable, more disconnected. People noticed. Pastor, you seem tired. Is everything okay? I smiled, lied, performed, and went home ... to die a little more each night. I knew I was dancing on the edge of a cliff, and yet I couldn't stop. The day everything fell apart wasn't some dramatic explosion. It was subtle, quiet, and yet it was the loudest silence I've ever heard in my life. My wife borrowed my laptop, something she rarely did. I wasn't even worried, because for years I had mastered the art of hiding. Private tabs, hidden folders, encrypted apps. But that day, I slipped. A folder, a file, a trail I didn't clean. She opened it, and there it was. Years of filth, of betrayal, of double life. I remember hearing her voice shaky, broken, calling my name from the living room. What ... is this? At first ... denial. My heart dropped. My mouth went dry. It's nothing. Just ... spam. Old files. Let me explain. But she wasn't stupid. She scrolled. She clicked. The history, the files, the chats ... Everything stared back at her like a demon finally unmasked. She didn't scream. She didn't throw anything. That would have been easier. What she did hurt more. She cried, but not loud. She cried with her hand over her mouth, shaking her head like watching someone die in front of her. And in a way, that's exactly what was happening. The man she thought she married was dead, gone, replaced by a stranger wearing his skin. She looked at me and said words that haunt me to this day. You stand in front of the church calling people to holiness. But behind closed doors, you're worshiping something else. I couldn't breathe. I felt naked, exposed, small, filthy. And then she grabbed her keys, took her phone, and left. Hours passed. I sat on the floor shaking, waiting, hoping, but it only got worse. By the next day, she had told the pastor. And by Sunday morning, my name wasn't on the preaching schedule. It was on the church prayer chain, but for all the wrong reasons. No calls, no texts, just silence. The kind of silence that feels like someone screaming in your face. I walked into the church that day, not as the pastor, but as the scandal. Eyes didn't meet mine. Whispers filled the air. Everything I spent my life building, gone. I didn't lose my ministry that day. I lost my mask. After the explosion, came the ruins. The silence in the house was louder than any argument we'd ever had. My wife didn't yell. She didn't curse. She just stopped talking, stopped looking at me like I was a person. She slept in the guest room, barely ate, barely existed near me. When I tried to speak, to explain, to beg, she'd simply say, "I don't know who you are." And truthfully, neither did I. The man who preached about purity couldn't even look at himself in the mirror. The church didn't officially kick me out. No, it was worse. They just withdrew, canceled meetings, canceled services I was supposed to lead. Nobody said the words, but everyone knew. The looks, the whispers, the polite, fake smiles that barely masked their disgust. The deacons started holding meetings without me. My phone, once flooded with texts from members asking for prayers, guidance, or encouragement, went dry, silent. People I had baptized, people whose weddings I had blessed, people whose hands I held at funerals. They disappeared, and the worst part? I couldn't even blame them. How could I? I had deceived every single one of them. My wife's family stopped coming over. Her father, a man who once called me the son he never had, blocked my number. My own parents disappointed wasn't even the word. They didn't know whether to grieve me or hate me. I lost the pulpit. I lost the respect. I lost the man I pretended to be. But most of all, I lost her. My wife wasn't just my partner. She was my anchor, my home, my safe place. And now, when I walked through the house, it felt like walking through a crime scene. Her eyes were empty. Her laughter gone. Her trust shattered. Nights were the worst. The bed felt 10 times bigger and 10 times colder. I stared at the ceiling for hours, hearing the echoes of the sermons I had preached, and wondering how many of those words I ever truly believed. The guilt didn't just suffocate me. It poisoned everything. My sleep, my appetite, my mind. I couldn't pray, couldn't sing, couldn't even open my Bible without hearing a voice in my head whisper, "Hypocrite." I wasn't just a fallen pastor. I was a broken man, drowning in the ocean of my own lies. When everything was stripped away, my ministry, my marriage, my identity, I was left with something I hadn't faced in years, myself. Not the version I showed on Sunday mornings. Not the polished man with a Bible in his hand and a smile on his face. No, just me, broken, ashamed, empty. And for a long time, I didn't even know if I wanted to be free. You'd think that, after losing everything, I would fall to my knees and repent, cry out for mercy, but it wasn't like that. It was darker, quieter. I stopped going to church. I stopped opening my Bible. I didn't even pretend to pray anymore. There were nights I just sat on the bathroom floor, staring at nothing, feeling the weight of years of hidden sin crushing my chest. I wondered if God still wanted me, or if I had finally crossed the line. You know, the line where grace runs out, the line where forgiveness no longer applies. But even in that silence, something inside me refused to fully die. I started watching testimonies online, stories of men like me, pastors, leaders, Christians who had fallen, but found their way back. I don't know why, but it stirred something. I Googled support groups for pornography addiction. Found one, an online group, anonymous, first meeting. I didn't even turn my camera on. I sat there, listening to men confess things I thought only I battled. For the first time, I didn't feel like a monster. I felt human. Broken, but human. Week after week, I showed up. Little by little, I spoke. I admitted things I had never said out loud. And every time I confessed it felt like a chain snapping. My wife, she wasn't ready to forgive. Maybe she never would. But she saw me fighting. Fighting for the first time. Not hiding, not pretending. Actually, fighting. I started therapy. Real therapy. Not the pray it away type. The dig into your childhood wounds and face your demons type. I realized my problem wasn't sex. Wasn't lust. It was emptiness. Loneliness. Shame. I used lust like a drug to escape the parts of me I didn't know how to face. And for the first time in my life, I'm not trying to be the perfect pastor. I'm just trying to be a real man. A free man. And it's the hardest thing I've ever done. And maybe you're listening to this right now because you're living the same double life I did. Maybe you're the guy who lifts his hands in worship but hides his browser history. Maybe you're the one preaching on Sunday but drowning in shame on Monday. Or maybe no one knows, not your wife, not your pastor, not your best friend, and you're thinking, if they knew, they'd leave. They'd never look at me the same again. Brother, I get it. I lived that nightmare. I lived with the constant fear of exposure, the constant cycle of falling, repenting, promising God it would be the last time only to fall again. And every time the guilt got heavier, the shame darker. But listen to me. The silence will kill you. The secrecy is what's feeding the monster. You think you're protecting your family by hiding it? You're not. You're killing yourself slowly. You're suffocating under the weight of something you were never meant to carry alone. And I know. You pray. You beg God to take it away. You cry on your pillow at night. You think, why am I like this? Why can't I stop? You hate it. But at the same time, you crave it. That's the cycle. That's the trap. And the only way out, is to drag this thing into the light. To confess to someone, anyone, your pastor, a mentor, a support group, a therapist, a friend, someone who won't let you stay in the dark, because freedom starts where the silence ends. You will never be free while pretending you don't have a problem. You will never heal while you're still wearing the mask. And no it's not easy. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. But listen it's possible. You don't have to lose your marriage. You don't have to lose your ministry. You don't have to lose yourself the way I did. You can fight. You can heal. You can change. But it starts with one terrifying step. Open your mouth. Tell the truth. Say the words you've never had the courage to say. And watch what happens when the light hits the darkest part of your soul. It doesn't destroy you. It frees you. I promise, it frees you. This was my confession. My ugly, painful, shameful truth. I was called a man of God. People looked up to me. They saw me on stages, preaching, leading, praying, and they had no idea that behind closed doors, I was a prisoner of lust, of secrets, of desires I couldn't control. And for years, I convinced myself that as long as no one, KNE, that wasn't hurting anyone, but the truth, it was killing me, slowly, silently, stealing my joy, stealing my marriage, stealing my intimacy with God, until it all fell apart. And I'm here, not because I'm proud, not because I'm perfectly healed. I'm here because I'm tired of pretending. I'm tired of hiding. I'm tired of letting shame have the final say. And maybe you're here because you need to hear this. Maybe you're here because you're tired too. Tired of pretending. Tired of living two lives. Tired of wondering if you'll ever be free. And if you are welcome. Welcome to this space where no one is perfect, but no one is judged. This is your safe place. A place where broken people become brave, where shame dies, and healing begins. Leave your story in the comments. Tell me where you're from. Tell me what you've been through. You are not alone. This is a family of people learning to fight, to rise, to heal, to become who God created us to be. God bless you. Keep watching this video. It's playing on your screen.